So generated online video has fundamentally changed in the past couple weeks in a way that has a very negative impact on human creativity. Because what we're mostly seeing with all these generated videos is very much not creative. And what just happened in these past 2 weeks is different than a lot of the releases we've seen so far. And it affects everyone who creates or consumes content online. So generating video was once kind of like this curiosity, or it wasn't easily accessible to most people. But now that has changed. It's free, it's widely available, in tools that are aimed squarely at you and your social media feeds. So I'm going to cover the pretty significant turning point that just happened in generative video and audio as well, and what that means for creators, for audiences, and really, for the whole internet itself at this point. We might be asking for proof of life from the internet quite soon. So I'll cover the new apps from OpenAI, from YouTube, from Meta, from Google, the people that are putting this technology in everybody's hands on a huge scale. And they've made it really easily accessible to everyone. We're going to look at some of the real world consequences of this happening. There's questions about copyright and likeness protection. There's a huge environmental cost of powering these new tools, but also what it's doing to data and the internet. I'm Jen DeHaan, and this is the Human Internet Theory. Today, we're going to go over some of the latest of what's going on, things that are relevant to the deadening of the internet. First, I'm going to cover the specific news and updates that you need to know about to understand this, all what's going on. Then I'm going to share my thoughts on what this means for human creativity and the things that we need to watch out for and advocate for, I think. Before we get into my take on all of this, let's understand exactly what happened out there lately. It's been a busy few weeks for the tech bros, and these changes are substantial and very important to the things that we do. So the generative video sector just experienced this huge turning point or inflection point or whatever. We just saw high quality generative video become widely available with very generous limits for free, and it's being targeted right at social media by anyone who can access a device or a computer, pretty much. There are a few limitations in some of the tools around region and codes, access codes and stuff, but they aren't going to last too long at this rate. Even if they are still there, things are changing so quickly. The big changes that have happened in these past few weeks are support for vertical video. That means that all these videos are really being aimed at places like TikTok and Shorts and Reels on a large scale, and also the ability to sync audio like voices and sound effects natively in these videos when you generate them. So those are big recent changes that have happened. And let's break down who is doing what. So OpenAI just launched Sora 2 a few days ago and launched a social media app to go with it. Now, this app was initially invite only, but this past weekend, they seem to have possibly opened the doors to a lot more people without the codes. Like me, I wanted to have a basic understanding of what I was talking about, so I went ahead and I got the Sora app. I needed a code to access that, but the next day when I opened up the app, it wasn't asking me for a code and it gave me full access to everything. So Sora is free with some pretty generous generation limits, and OpenAI appears to also be losing a ton of cash every time people make videos. So they wanted to really make this available to everyone in this kind of race. When OpenAI launched this, they also had a default opt-out copyright policy. So this meant that the rights holders, the people that own the copyright to certain characters and so on, had to manually opt out of having their work used in this app. Anyways, they backtracked on the policy that they launched with very quickly because there was a lot of complaints and backlash about it. So YouTube now has its model VO3 Fast built directly into YouTube Studio, and that's for generating YouTube Shorts. VO3 Fast is the lower quality video generation model that they have. But this model includes both video and audio generation in sync and in standalone content that you can then just push into shorts. So their release along with that video tool also had several other new AI tools for creating soundtracks, audio, and editing videos as well. There were some region and language limitations on their video tool, but I'm going to guess that that's not going to last a whole lot longer either. Google also has an AI filmmaking app called Flow, and they have their regular higher quality VO model built in, VO2. So this is a higher quality or resolution than what's on YouTube Shorts. Now, there was a very recent update to this tool, I think maybe in the past week or so, that made Flow available also for free. They're giving you 100 credits to get you started on that tool. So that is a very new change in this whole race for video generation dominance. There's a note on the Flow website saying that over the next few weeks, we'll be phasing out VO2 in Flow as we work on having VO3 do everything that VO2 can, simplifying the user experience. So there's a big quality bump with free access in that tool as well. And Meta's not going to be left out on all of this, of course. In this race for peak social media impact, they released a new app called Vibes, which can generate AI video and it can remix those AI videos. It also is a dedicated feed of just AI generated videos with the Meta AI app and the website. I guess it's on both because I'll be honest, I haven't gone and looked for these things to look at the feed. I just read the articles instead because I've seen the type of AI videos on Facebook in particular, and I felt that that was as far as I probably needed to go. But I'll link the articles in the description if you want to go find Vibes and check it out. So the four big players just put their tools out there for everyone for free, so wide access. And this turning point might not be just limited to video. So these videos have made a big leap in audio capabilities as well. And in audio generation on its own, there have been recent advancements in music generation from tools like Suno as well. We've seen companies like Inception Point AI releasing thousands of podcast episodes every week. And in a recent interview on Pod News, it was really interesting. Their CEO admitted that they mostly don't listen to or review this content before publishing it. I mean, I'm really paraphrasing there. You can go check out that interview. I'll put the link in the description. But I should also make a note here about deepfakes and all of these video generation tools before we move on, because YouTube is rolling out likeness protections against deepfakes in their tools. Sora is also doing something similar that's allowing artists to authorize their likeness with a feature that they call cameos. Judging by what I'm already seeing out there from OpenAI's tool and everything, that doesn't seem to be going too well, or it might not be reliable yet. As a related example, while writing the outline for this video earlier today, I got a notification that some big account that I follow just put something new online. You should go look at it. And it seems like they were hacked by somebody who posted generated videos with fake major news events. So between the deep fakes that are coming out already and these fake news stories, these fake disasters, just basically RIP to knowing what's real on an entirely new scale because of these. I've heard a reaction to that criticism of, well, we've had Photoshop on the internet for decades, but I don't think that's very valid in light of the level of access and the level of these tools now available for free to everyone as of this month. And on that topic of generated identities, let's talk about Tilly Norwood for a second. So Tilly is an AI-generated character who, in the last month, has been the subject of a push for agent representation in Hollywood by its creator. So this has led to basically a flood of clever but angry clever posts from actors and unions and many of my improviser friends as well. Very memorable, clever, angry posts, or sarcastic, really. The move was also really widely condemned formally by the actors' unions worldwide. But I think that whole event that also happened this month could be a very clear look at how Hollywood intends to commercialize these generative video AI tools moving forward. Same but probably much more advanced models than the things we're seeing with Sora 2 and Veo 3. Really, Tilly might also be a PR stunt to get necessary investor interest to continue in whatever projects are going on behind the scenes. Before we get to my opinion on all of this, there's one more piece of news to cover. So to power all of this massive uptick in content generation and how big these video files are for these short form memes, companies are making huge deals for huge mega data centers that are needed to store and process all of this stuff that's now going out there. And these facilities, they all have a significant environmental cost. Their energy consumption, for example, can rival or even exceed large cities like New York. So in some of these communities as well, the people living there, the residents, have become worried about water safety and access to drinking water as well. So you know where to find the links. All of that will be in the description as well. So while we're talking about data centers, check out my site at humaninternettheory.com and connect with me there. I have a newsletter there where I'll be sending out updates about things like this every so often. We have these new technologies, but let's step back for a second and ask a bigger question. And that question is, what are we actually doing? Right? We're exploding the amount of content that we're creating online, and we're needing to store it as well. So we're really radically changing what will be available, what is going to be the content of our feeds and our websites and our search results as well when we're looking for information. So I make light of these memes and these trends, but as a whole, I do think that we need to start asking these questions. Like, why are we literally creating podcasts on topics that no human even bothers listening to before publishing? Because I know for sure that there's a ton of garbage advice on gardening, for example, online that doesn't even work. And that's the stuff that LLMs are just pulling in to create that podcast that no human listens to before it gets served out to the masses. And apparently that doesn't even matter. You can read that in the interview I'm linking in the description as well. So RIP your tomatoes, maybe. We're calling this art and we're calling this creativity. We're saying that we've democratized the creator. But with these tools, what we're doing instead really is turning humans into executive producers that are really removed from the project, or commissioners or clients. And the creator in this case is AI and the collective work of all the artists the model was trained on, right? The creative work is being done by those other artists and the model itself, not the person typing it in necessarily. So let's talk about creativity. Like, what is creative? What is being creative? So ideas. The ideas are great, but artists and educators usually don't take the very first idea that we have. We create or we get a bunch of ideas together in our heads, and then we pursue the ideas that really pass muster. These are the ideas that we sort of judge as ones that bear merit, that have merit. And then we take those ideas and we iterate on the good ones, the ones that we like. And then we let those ideas marinate in our brains, really. We let them sit there in our subconscious, and then we change them. We get new ideas. We build those ideas out. And then the execution part happens. And that execution part is most likely going to include further iteration as more connections and stuff, more marination happens. And then we go through revision processes. And those things all combined together is what pushes that idea into a creation. And all of those things are really worthy of our time and our effort. And they're also hopefully worthy of the power and water consumption of a data center somewhere if we're putting it online. The challenge, that effort, and most importantly, that iteration process over time is what makes something great. That is the creativity. Like, Many of my ideas, for example, for these videos, but my audio dramas especially, they start in a recliner and an app where I type down my ideas as I get them. And then I let them sit in my brain and iterate on them. I iterate a lot when I'm on my elliptical, just walking. I'll get an idea, I'll stop, I will be just looking at a wall, walking on my elliptical and thinking about the ideas and iterating them. Or I might get an idea when I'm out in the garden, bored, but then not because I'm thinking about ideas. And then I revise those ideas, say, with another human while I'm in the kitchen cooking something. I might change those ideas again while I'm actually creating the show or writing the rundown or writing the script, whatever it is. So deep thinking, subconscious thinking, those things are so important for sustaining our creativity over a lifetime. Could we do this with AI, though? Collaboration, for sure. I think we can collaborate. But right now, it looks like a majority of the things that we're doing here with these new tools is like blasting social media and websites in ways where there isn't maybe a lot of thinking involved and certainly not much iteration. Because we also see this on a large scale with Inflection Point AI that I discussed, making all those 3,000 podcasts every week. That doesn't have much or any human oversight before it gets placed online. We have to ask ourselves these questions. Is this what we want to watch on our feeds? Is this what we want dished out when we search on a topic ongoing for years on search engines or in the AI tools and the LLMs themselves? Because it's essentially like this watering down of creativity and accuracy, the way that most people are doing it today, it seems. Now, we could see better storytelling, better thinking, creativity, if more people and companies start using AI as a more of a collaborative tool. And some are, for sure, but many aren't, as we see with this sort of prevalence of proof of concept style output, with the low effort sounding text posts, with unedited AI written articles and podcasts, that all of this feels very divorced from much of the human collaboration part of the process. Like it feels like animation or CG that kind of skipped the long but very rewarding and fun process of drawing storyboards and writing and editing and iteration and using humans for motion capture and so on. So if a lot of our content that we see online ends up being like that, it's really going to give dead internet theory out there pretty quickly. So we need the human internet theory. It's important to get ideas and let them marinate in order to do that iterative process. And there's science around how our unconscious mind goes through an incubation period in order to trigger new ideas or pivots from our current ideas. And these things can be so useful. They're critical in the implementation stage. One interesting learning that I got from neuroscience, reading about neuroscience, is called the default mode network. And this network activates in our brains during this stage of idea generation. And it's great at integrating ideas, making those connections and pattern recognition. It's our subconscious, our unconscious brain. All of these things are what lead to breakthroughs, creative breakthroughs. And we need this time cognitively. So giving it up entirely to AI, replacing it, is a very serious issue when it comes to creativity for humans. And I'll put links about that neuroscience in the description as well. So this doesn't mean that we need to get rid of AI, but it does mean that we need to think about and very possibly advocate for using it differently as a collaborative tool to help humans rather than replace this part of the process, to make those who just replace creativity, who don't bother with human oversight. We need to collectively say something to people who are replacing their creativity with AI with something like, say, I love that for you, in a way that really implies that we don't love what they're doing. I don't know, do something like that. We need to make it embarrassing. So I've heard the industry discredit this argument that I'm making, this sentiment with, for example, lazy Luddite, as the Inception Point CEO loved to say about us, or, that we're all dinosaurs who don't want to keep up with the times. But I don't really buy this, especially since a lot of people are not dissing all of AI. Like, we're not saying we need to throw it all out. The part that I'm concerned about and specifically talking about why I created this channel is specifically about how this mass fire hose of content is affecting the internet and human creativity when it's used to just replace it for the most part, or replace most of it. When humans are being removed from a lot, most, or all of this part of the process. So for creativity to continue, we need to support people doing the hard work, who are continuing to do this hard work of generating and iterating on their ideas, of revising their work, editing their work, and keeping the human oversight in there. We need places that will curate and continue to support this kind of work through enhanced discovery of human creation. We need to be able to search for this work. We need to be able to find it and run across it. We need new human ideas. And we need that to remain accessible to other humans. What we share as creative humans should not be lost to this fire hose of trends and memes made by automated process with little to no human oversight, or the industries that are pushing out the human creativity for capitalistic interests and deaden the whole internet or our Hollywood movies. Like the AI-generated Tilly Norwood. That creation is not an actor by any kind of definition of acting. Acting requires emotions. It requires sentience. And just as what's being generated from a prompt is not art, same thing. It's not creativity. It's not creating. It's like producing or hiring somebody to do something for you, especially if there's no human oversight, just like with those Inception Point podcasts. People are just publishing ideas, often not even ideas of their own, but now on a massive scale. So what has happened over the past month is a pretty serious signal of what we're gonna probably see online for a long time. So it's a problem if humans stop using our tools and our brains to learn and think and ruminate and then create, because an original work is no longer supported or discoverable online. And this is a problem if whatever we do to create is now also quite possibly written off as generated. For sure, that's already happening. And then that just makes people quit creating or doing or trying or sharing or helping. And I'll leave on this thought. In 2010, 1,500 CEOs were interviewed, and they ranked creativity as the most crucial leadership quality. So again, I ask, what are we doing to our human brains with so much replacement of our creative thinking skills? And in these past few weeks, we've sure seen a shift to something that really prioritizes volume and speed and investor interests over craft and creativity and the humans on the internet. And the risk that we already have today is that this sheer quantity of generated content could really overwhelm the platforms that we use for discovery on basically just a highway towards an internet where it's egregiously difficult for genuine human-led creative ideas and work and connection, all of those things, to find human eyeballs. So the challenge moving forward is to make sure that we don't lose that we don't lose this human process of creativity, that the internet and really everything else that touches the internet, which is, a lot of things now, that it was all really built upon, that we don't really end up with an entirely dead internet. So I'll be back later this week for another episode on creating using our own brains for the internet that this lazy Luddite is doing. Bye for now.